What up, guys? Welcome to the Jiu-Jitsu Podcast, episode 328. Today we have with us the producers from the CJI, the Craig Jones Invitational. So I was talking to Mark, one of their assistants, who had watched one of my videos, and he was saying, "Hey, man, I would love to get these guys in contact with you to have them on the show to kind of talk about what was going on with it." Because one of the things that for me, I think everybody was not sure what was going to happen with the Craig Jones Invitational, but one of the things is, they were pushing this YouTube stream, pushing this free stream, and so you're like, well, what's that going to look like? Because most of the time, free streams are pretty janky, but they knocked it out of the park. They had a great stream. They did a really great job with production, and so they did a great job. And so we wanted to talk with them to get more details of the the behind the scenes stuff of the stuff that worked, the stuff that didn't work, and the whole lead up of it. And it's interesting because we're going to talk to these two different guys, Eddie and Todd. And Eddie is a jiu-jitsu black belt. Yep. And he's a jiu-jitsu black belt. He trains, he worked, if you guys will talk more about this in a bit, but he worked on the old Metamora show. Yeah. Which, if you guys are been in jiu-jitsu long enough, then you remember that show, and it had a great production quality to it. And Todd, he does different things with things like karate combat. And so it was these two guys who had known each other for a long time. They come together on this project, and they did a really great job with producing it. And so we're going to talk to them about all of that, and I hope that you guys enjoy it. And you, especially if you watch the CJI and you enjoyed the stream and you enjoyed the broadcast. Big thanks to our sponsors for helping make this podcast happen so that my beautiful bearded voice can come to your ears every week. Charlotte's Web CBD, if you guys have not checked them out, it's worth checking out. For me, CBD is one of those things where it becomes part of a recovery routine. So there's different things, again, as you guys understand, as you start to get north of 30 and you get into once you become eligible for masters, right? You start to get more and more focused on what can I do to recover? What can I do to help improve my ability to train? Because again, that's the end of the day. Jiu-Jitsu it's one of these things where it's about longevity at some point. Like, don't get me wrong, we all want to compete, we all want to push it and everything else, but you're sort of playing as Simon Sinek would call it, the infinite game. Where the goal of an infinite game is to keep playing the game. That's the goal, right? And so, within jiu-jitsu, there are these finite games of a role or a competition match, whatever it might be, but it's an infinite game, and you just train jiu-jitsu because you want to train, you want to keep going, you enjoy it, it brings something to your life. And so, for me, there's a number of different things. I'm big on, again, the basics, which I'm sure many of you guys are aware of. It's something I'm not going to tell you that's brand new, but again, diet, sleep, taking, training properly sometimes to how you feel and what your body can take. I know that those are really simple, but those are the biggies. I remember changing my diet and feeling so much less inflammation in my knobby old mangled hands. Getting enough sleep does wonders. Having good sleep hygiene, going to sleep at the same time, seeing light in the morning, reading a book instead of scrolling on your phone. And I mean, all these things, silly, basic stuff, but it's really important. But then there are like little tweaks, like at nighttime, I have a red lamp instead of a traditional light. So it's very dimming, right? It has a dim light that I can read through, but it doesn't keep me awake. I keep the house at a certain temperature. I have a certain bedtime routine that I go through. And one of the things that I do institute with my nighttime routine is I take CBD. I like taking CBD. I feel like I have a noticeable difference with sleep quality and also with like the inflammation in my body, right? And again, it's not FDA regulated, so there's a lot of things you can't go just like throwing out claims and stuff like that. But from my own experience, it does help with the sports induced inflammation that we get from tugging on joints and wrestling around with each other. And so again, if you guys want to check out any of their products and save 30%, go to the website at charlottesweb.com. The promo code is Chewjitsu30, CHEWJITSU30, and you'll get 30% off the order. And if you do get an order with Charlotte's Web, send us a screenshot either to the Jiu-Jitsu Podcast Instagram or to jujitsupodcast@gmail.com, and send us a screenshot of your receipt, and we'll send you a link to a free, it's not free, it'll be free to you, but a bonus playlist of videos that I've never released on YouTube that, goes through different things. So if you like my YouTube videos, you'll like the playlist. And it's just will be a special thank you for grabbing one of the things from our sponsor. Also, thanks to our sponsor, Epic Roll, epicrollbjj.com. If you guys have never been to their website, go in there and check it out. Again, I use them for my no-gi gear. Pretty much all of my no-gi gear now is from Epic Roll. I like the quality. I like the fit. I think the no-gi, if you guys have ever, one of my big selling points, and this is not such a big deal now, but years ago, you'd always have like the Velcro shorts, and they would always drive me nuts because the shorts would be good, but the Velcro strap would be gone. With the Epic Roll stuff. It's got a great fit, and you also don't have the Velcro shorts on the 2.0 shorts that they have. And again, they have gis, rash guards, shorts, merch, t-shirts, whatever, anything and everything jiu-jitsu related. If you can wear it, they probably has it. And again, Matt is one of the owners, and he is a jiu-jitsu practitioner who has been supporting grapplers for a long time. And so if you guys want to check them out, epicrollbjj.com is the website. Jiu-Jitsu20 is the promo code. And guys, if you want to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to our Patreon, patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. When you join up, you'll get access to some exclusive content we packaged together for you from all of our different guests, as well as some additional extras like seminars that I've recorded. And also, Eugene has a really good warm-up routine specifically for grapplers. If you want to get a hold of it, it's really useful. If any of my students are listening, it's the same stuff that we've been using in class recently because I really like it. And for any of you guys listening, we're going to be releasing a sort of an at-home sort of product, something that you can do at home to support your jiu-jitsu, at home or whatever, so that when you go to the gym, you're in better shape to do it. Well, one of those things is going through this really simplified routine, and the videos inside the Patreon have a bit of it. And then we'll have a more expanded version later, but it's really good stuff. It'll help keep those hips and knees and ankles and shoulders and neck loose, and also make you feel better. So when you're trying to roll, so it's stuff I use. And if you guys want to check it out, patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And last but not least, guys, if you want to join up to my Chew Crew email newsletter, where I send out a daily letter to you guys that can go into anything and everything, you could see some ideas from Stoic philosophy. I think the other day I was sharing some ideas from Schopenhauer, if you guys are familiar. And then it goes into everything from, stuff that I learned over the years through training, and then even diet or training advice. I don't want to say advice, but ideas that I've picked up, because when I do share anything, I kind of share it from this is what's worked for me, or here's what I've learned, rather than telling you this is the way to do things. Because a lot of times I think we're all figuring out our own version of things, just like a technique. You do a technique, you tweak it, you make it your own, that kind of thing. But a lot more stuff. You can get it for free by going to my website at jujitsu.net/join. And when you join up, you'll get access to a couple of free ebooks, one of which is to help you develop a jiu-jitsu game plan, which could be really useful if you have a competition coming up, or you just want to have insight into how your game works. And the other one is on some drilling strategies that you can use at your next open mat. So again, check it out at jujitsu.net/join. And with that said, guys, let's get into this podcast with Todd and Eddie.
Chewy, I'm curious, how did you guys come about? How did the conversation come about to get these guys?
I got a message from Mark. I forgot his last name, but he said he'd worked in the production crew. I've got from his Instagram.
Yeah, that's who I talked to.
Yeah. And so he had sent me a message, and, he was like, basically was saying man, obviously the whole jiu-jitsu world was talking about CJI, because you never know what it's going to be like until the day of the event, until the event happens. And I think that the whole darn thing, it knocked it out of the park, especially considering how short of a time you guys had leading up to it. The actual events, the alley and the round system, I thought was brilliant. It made for really exciting matches. And then the production was great. Whether you were there in person and it was an electric event, there was a lot of excitement going on. And then if you were watching the stream, it was a beautiful stream. And usually, one of the things that happens with most jiu-jitsu events is the stream and production that we get at home generally isn't all that great. It's a pain in the butt. A lot of times has really just riddled with commercials that we don't want to watch half the time or whatever. But even if you're paying for it, and so it's, there's all that stuff. And so the production value was really top notch. And so, Mark was like, we're riding that wave. Let's talk about it. So this way, when the next one comes up, it will be out and everybody is going to know about it. And we'll be able to put the word out there about the event and get you guys on to talk about it. And that's how it started.
Yeah. Shout out to Mark for putting this together. He actually is a brown belt at our academy, and I brought him and another purple belt to come help really the production. Hey, I kind of need to start off as interns to kind of help out, do walkthroughs, and kind of be stand-ins for athletes and help us mark different positions for cameras, and really just fill in the gaps that, hey, go grab this, or sometimes grab food. But as the days progressed, their roles increased. I think towards the end,
standouts. Yeah.
Towards the end, Mark and James ended up and Aaliyah ended up becoming VIP experienced personnel because we had a gap there in our production. We had a gap and like, hold on, there's people that need to get from point A to point B. And they're like, well, let's do it. Let's go. So our show's in play. Like, we don't need stand-ins anymore. So I need you to do this. And they shined. I mean, they're jiu-jitsu guys. They're really good people. And they were there to serve.
So I just kind of, before we kind of really get going into it, if you guys can just briefly share kind of like your background and like how essentially you got involved with Craig Jones and the CJI. Like, how did this thing come about? How did you guys get contact, or did you contact them? How did you get involved with this thing? And then we'll kind of go from there.
Sure. I'll go first. So Craig had done some karate combats. He was in 2 of them. I produced Karate Combat. And so we had a bit of a relationship. When they came up with the idea, there's a guy named Darren Murray. He was kind of the head marketing guy for the show. He contacted me, and Darren was kind of the main point of contact that said, these are the guys. If you only have 2 months, these are the guys to do it. And that's where Eddie and I got involved. Eddie and I have worked together, man, since 2004. We've done X Games, we've done Street League skateboarding, beach volleyball. We've done lots of big shows. And now we're kind of turning and trying to take this sport and elevate this sport and bring that big show philosophy to this sport. A lot of the things we didn't do aren't like groundbreaking, right, or revolutionary. They just haven't been done with jiu-jitsu. It's almost like it hasn't been given the full treatment. And once you do, and instead of doing like a 720p stream, you do a 1080p stream and you spend just a little bit more for that bandwidth, it doesn't look grainy like you're talking about, right? We put a camera up in the air. We do a couple of small things and came in super under budget, honestly, from what other shows do that are competitive to that. And it makes a big difference.
There's a lot to touch on that idea. You were talking about it's not new, but it's new to jiu-jitsu. I think that's true with like a lot of things, right? Like, I think, because of the sort of the niche sort of thing that jiu-jitsu is, a lot of times there's everything from training methodologies to like you guys are getting into in production and stuff like that. Jiu-jitsu sometimes lags behind. So you're just taking something that's really common over here and you're just like, we're just bringing it to this area. And for us, it's like, oh, wow, this is new to us in our space. Right. So that's awesome. What about you, Eddie?
Yeah. So Todd and I began working together in 2004 on the technical side. And then I started producing Metamoris in 2014 to 2016 with Holic. I did M3. I worked on M2, but became EP for M3 to M6. And then after M6, I left Metamoris and went back to, working on television shows and working on festivals. And then I called Todd, I think in January. I called Todd, I go, hey, Todd, man, like I got this feeling about coming back to jiu-jitsu. I haven't done jiu-jitsu in 10 years. I want to get back to producing like my sport. I've been doing jits for 16 years. I really want to get back to it. If there's something, in the karate combat world or something that we can work on within 4 weeks, 6 weeks, he goes, Eddie, I got a gig. And that was it.
It was meant to be.
We just been working alongside, like, where he can't manage something, I manage it. Where, hey, dude, I need help here. And so we just ping ponged. And so Todd's obviously the show producer in the truck. He essentially manages what's coming up next. I help manage the event as a producer, as the inside of the event, and kind of in the bird's eye view of what's happening in the event. And then I kind of relate to Todd. Hey, this is what's happening on the floor level. He relates back to me what he's seen on camera. And then through that, we built this production element, and with Craig Jones and Seth and their marketing and their vision, it all really came together.
What was it like working with Craig, and then like uniquely about the CJI? What did you guys? Is there something that you wanted to express or show more than anything?
I think Craig is incredibly creative, like more creative than the 4 of us can squeeze together somehow.
Yeah.
And so, we had ideas and he would come along and his idea would be so much better that it was just fun. Like, and we were on the phone the day before the finals, just coming up with stuff and running through what is the walkout going to look like and what song should play, and being able to do that with him was, for me, it was one of the highlights. I mean, it was really cool and a great experience overall, but being with somebody and like ping ponging with somebody that creative was super, super cool.
It made it almost easy for us because, you know, for us to be, we're kind of the boundary of that creativeness until that boundary doesn't work. One example was, I know Todd knows this example, is when Seth's walkout was not Seth's walkout. Like, that's not what we planned. Seth was supposed to come down the alley like anybody else. Like every other fighter was supposed to come down. All of a sudden, he's coming out from where his seat is. And I'm like flipping out. I'm like, what is happening? I go, Todd, what? So we pivot. We like, okay, well, the camera shots weren't ready. We hadn't rehearsed it. He took a swig of his alcohol and he was going to jump on. So it's things like that. Like, yeah, like he would, you know, we'd have conversations about his walkout music and then this and that. And he tells 95% of it. But that 5%, man, be ready for it because we had to jump on quick.
And so there's that awesome shot on Instagram where Craig pulls his pants off and my stage manager is just staring. That's him on headset, like screaming where he's at every step so we could find him. It's like
we had no idea where he was.
It worked out so well. Yeah, that was awesome.
We had no idea where he was.
So it wasn't planned. And like, I mean, was he supposed to do that? No, not supposed to.
He
had
was
the pants on, so you know.
The pants thing was supposed to be happening, but it was supposed to come from the walkway, not from his seat. So I'm like, Todd, he's still in his seat. I need him backstage. Damien, he's not backstage. Where the fuck is? I mean, we went ape shit for 15 seconds, and then Todd's like, okay, we found him. We're good. Moving on.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah,
that has to be pretty intense. Has to be pretty intense on the day of, right? Like when you guys are doing it, you go in with this plan, you know, it's like anything else, right? Like when you have a plan, but then when the action starts, it all just, some of it goes out the window. Is it a pretty intense experience when you guys are going through that stuff and making those changes day of?
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I think what's really great is we had a really good team. And so I have so much trust in Eddie. I have so much trust in my stage manager, Damien, my director, Steve, that you don't freak out as much. It's like everybody just reacts. And they're so good at what they do that we all kind of, you know, if you think of it faster than me, your idea is better and we're good and we just trust in it. And that show was very unique and we had like so many all-stars. Like we kind of, Eddie and I went through and we picked the best of the best and from our networks to put together a really solid team. You can't do a show like that in 2 months without having really, really good people. A lot of people don't know this. We barely had any show rehearsal. We just had a bunch of issues and delays where we maybe had an hour and a half of rehearsal, which was really scheduled like 6 or 7 hours of full rehearsal. The talent got maybe 15 minutes of rehearsal and we just went into the show and did it. And we killed it from the beginning. Halfway through, me and Eddie were on comms with each other like, dude, I can't believe this. This is crazy. Like, we really, this is working.
Yeah,
it was just a fight.
Top of show was rough for me when I was like, oh, I could feel like it wasn't going to where Todd and I kind of thought and talked about it, you know, at so many dinners and so many, you know, nights where we're like, okay, this is how we envision it. And that first like opening segment and this and that, like it just didn't go right. But then after the first fight, that was it. Like the train had left the station. It's going.
Somebody hopped on comms and they were like 60,000 people are watching right now. And we were on the air for like 5 minutes and we were like, oh shoot.
Yeah.
Like, it was 30,000. It was 30,000 on the countdown.
Yes.
Yeah.
Before we even started.
And then it jumped up to like what, 140, 60, something like that. It was nuts.
Incredible, man. Incredible.
So here's a question for you guys. You know, both of you guys come from these professional production, you know, areas and other sports and other TV and things like that. When you guys were looking at this thing, you know, you guys are looking at it from the outside. You guys obviously had worked together and you kind of had a feel for each other. You're looking at the jiu-jitsu space. You look at how production's been done in the past. Were there things that you were looking at and saying, man, I really think that this will make a big impact, or this is something I want to bring from, you know, this area, karate combat, TV, X Games, whatever, and I want to bring that over to jiu-jitsu because I think it would make for something really good?
I think that Metamoris set a bar for a lot of those jiu-jitsu shows, right? It was just a beautiful show. And some of the things that you see now just look like they're very quick and thrown together. And so we wanted to have a really good looking show. Knowing that I produce Karate Combat, I wanted to give them a different looking show. And so we were very determined to give them a different looking show. The alley walls make for very tough production. It's not normal production. And so early on, Eddie and I decided we need to find a way to get a camera kind of up in the air, which is where that Jitta cam came from. We need a way to be able to, fly around overhead, look down, get like the right angles. And I think Eddie will tell you the same thing. If we get to do it over again, we'll probably add 1 or 2 more cameras just to really. Jiu-Jitsu is a hard one to cover. The angles are so important. And full disclosure, I'm not a jiu-jitsu guy. I went to my 3rd class the other day and I got injured, and so I'm on the mend right now. I'll be back.
How'd you get injured? What happened?
Dude, I woke up the next morning and I coughed and I had like this shooting pain under my stomach, and I was like,
what?
Like, I'm a grown man. I run a company. I'm a dad. I can't be like out for months. So I'm going to take a couple days. And
that's
what I was afraid of.
Let's be real. He's used muscles he's never touched.
I'm positive.
In his entire life. So I told him, he called me, he's like, bro, my entire body is jacked. I go, man, you're moving. You're doing moves you've never done before.
Did they have you full rolling, like all the way through?
No, they wouldn't let me roll. It was just practicing stuff.
Okay, good.
Yeah. I did like 10 triangles with each leg on this dude, and by the end of it, like, toasted.
Yeah.
Even if you don't train, like, whatever, if you get someone that, like, you're around karate combat, you're around combat sports and things like that, you start to get an eye for just what is like going to grab the eye, and sort of like there's action happening here. And like you said, it's kind of hard for jiu-jitsu because if there's a hand battle going over on this side and you can't quite see from the angles, then it's, you don't necessarily would know what's going on.
But Chewy, to your question earlier, as far as like what we wanted to bring, there was little things that collectively made the production side really work. I mean, if you look at, like, we mic'd up all the refs, right? Every ref was mic'd up. Every coach was mic'd up. We pictured the coach during the match. We even had the idea of having Hanato talk on a hand mic during Craig's match. Like, those are things that kind of just like, well, what if we do this? Well, what if we do that? Right? Does it go on a lav? Does it go on a hand mic? There was an error actually on our end. It was a lav and we couldn't hear it. It wasn't happening the way we wanted to. So we went to a hand mic. The cameras, like, we wanted the JIT. I think we wanted to increase the visibility of the matches, but again, it's such the sport moves so quickly that, and there's so many different angles, right? There's so many different angles we can choose from. But I think our director did a really good job. I think Todd knows enough of fighting that he's like, wait a minute, stay here. Right? Because directors seem to like want to move the cameras. They want to show their cameras. Man, like, stay here. Like, you don't need to move. Like, everyone's watching. The craziest thing about jiu-jitsu, and no one really gets it, is that, unless you know it, is how quiet it can be. It's like golf.
Yeah.
Right. All of a sudden, just everyone's dead quiet watching this sport. You think no one's quiet at UFC. No one's quiet in these other matches. Everyone's like, ah. It was dead silent for certain matches, right? And then something happens, some reversal, some escape, some pass. The whole place erupts, and you can just feel that energy.
What was a big hurdle you guys had to overcome? I mean, I know that the time constraints were pretty.
Todd, I'll let you take that one.
I mean, I don't know if you like, maybe like, do you want to ask like what broke? Like, because everything you go into it with like a plan, right? Like, stuff breaks and stuff works. Like, maybe like what broke?
What broke? What do you mean?
Like basically what, like, we came in there with this plan and this didn't work out like we thought it was going to,
I think for us, we had a really good plan. It was like the best plan, and Eddie and I spent hours talking through this plan, and it was rock solid. There were challenges in building the alley. If like the Karate Combat pit, you could fit 2 of them inside the alley. The thing was massive. And it just took way longer to build than anticipated. And in our schedule, that was like item number 2 to get completed. And so we got stuck on item number 2 for a couple of days. And it made it really hard. So, we did a lot of talking to the camera guys through situations. We did a lot of, you ever see those like those videos, and it's like the football team is in the conference room, like going through plays. It's kind of like that. Like, what can we do? What can we talk about? What can we figure out so we get the space? and we didn't really get the space till the morning of that first day. Was that Friday morning?
Wow.
So Friday morning, like 9 a.m., we rehearsed, and by noon we were doing a show.
Dang.
It was really difficult, man. You know, shout out to everybody on that crew. We had a lot of really good professional people, and a lot of props to Seth for putting together a really strong team of keys, like finding all the important people in leadership roles. Like we had Jason Herzog, and so our officiating was on point. You know, in every spot he had somebody that was a pro from somewhere, and it just ran incredibly smooth because of that.
Yeah, Seth managed all the athletes. I mean, everything when it came to athletes, management, having them there on time. Shout out to Anthony Horta, our associate producer.
For people who've never done it, man, they ran circles around people who have organizations up and running right now. Like they really did. It's super impressive.
Yeah, because there's the B team, right? The B team is on B Team Media and Seth and Craig, and then there's athletes, and then there's Todd and I, and then that communication of getting it. You know, athletes, where are they? You know, where are they staying? And then we need them here at this time. And how do they enter? And then walking them through the pit. There's just so much that has to go through that really worked flawlessly with B team's media team, Seth, Craig, Anthony, and then Todd and I and our team. Shout out to Katie Mason and Gina and Liz and our team. It to get that together and our first time working together was remarkable.
Agreed.
What changes do you think you guys, or was there like one big change you made from day one to day two? Like, what did you learn from day one? And then like, we're going to make this better, or it kind of made, I mean, obviously the matches on day two were incredibly exciting. So that took care of a lot of the excitement piece, but like just to capture that, to make it so dynamic and just a fun thing to watch. Was there something you guys pivoted or changed between the day one and two?
Well, our talent changed a little bit, right? I mean, we added talent. We added Hanato. We added it was
Michael,
much more.
Yeah,
we added Michael Steve Williams. The pressure was on a bit more. I think Todd could agree. I think it was like, okay, we're getting to that $1 million prize. I know Todd and I were talking. Like we got to fill content. Like we only have so many matches, right? But that content was so much better. That the quality of it was so much better than the quantity of it. And I think Todd and I were like, well, how do we extend the show? We really didn't need to. I mean, those matches were just enough. And we didn't, at least for me, I didn't realize how valuable it really was. Not just where we were trying to fill space, but in the end of the day, like there was a lot of pressure on day two, more than day one. Because day one, it's like, okay, we're not gonna have that many. We'll have viewers, but not like day two.
Right. I agree. Yeah, man, I agree. I think that we went into it with a plan. Day one, we had 24 matches to get through. And so we were going to try and do those as efficiently as possible and not take too many breaks, not stall too much, just really get through all the matches. On day two, we suddenly have 8 matches. And so it's like, are we ripping people off in the stands? You know, like, I don't want it to be 2 hours. Like, that's too short. And so, I mean, we went through like a good hour convo about like things we can do to extend it. And it's true, it worked out kind of flawlessly. Like, we added a couple more guests. Ronnie Chang was in the booth, and we just took 10 minutes to talk to him in jiu-jitsu, which was super cool. We gave away a Miata. Like, we did all these things that slowed it down enough, but it felt, the jiu-jitsu was just like, the fighting was next level, that it felt fun, right? It didn't feel slow or boring or like what are these guys doing? It was just like insane fighting, like a little bit of antics, insane fighting. Craig rips his pants off. Like, it was, my wife is not a huge fighting fan or a jiu-jitsu fan, and she said that's the best show she's ever been to. She was in the crowd, like, and you know, every video I have from the crowd, it's incredible, man. It's just 9,000 people just losing their minds. Super cool, and probably the platform jiu-jitsu should be on, right? Like, it kind of feels like they have proved that point, that they totally belong to be on that platform.
How do you make it better? What's, like, you know, if you do it again, when you do it again, how do you make a better product? And since you guys kind of knocked it out of the park, like, what's maybe some things you guys can focus on to make it even a better experience for even, you know, people there and the people watching?
I mean, I like to see some more backstage footage. I think we were so pressed on the show that, you know, getting the show up perfect and right, and that I would like to see more backstage. I think we got some good backstage stuff, enough to fill what the needs, but I'd love to see more content from the fighters. I think we needed to
Agreed.
be more content from the fighters. I think maybe not repeating so many packages. I feel like we needed some fresh packages. The sizzle reel that Stuart Cooper and John put together, holy crap, that
Sick.
sizzle reel
Yeah, it was sick.
day one was, and I mean, he worked all night. I mean, he worked all night. Shout out to him. Stuart shot it. I talked to Stuart. I'm like, all right, so when can I get this? I need it by, I need it by 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the truck. He's like, I'm not even editing it. My guy is. So he did not sleep all night.
It was awesome.
And he put it together. So yeah, I think just a little variance in the content, maybe.
Mhm.
If I were to pick something,
It feels valid, right? Some of these guys are like huge personalities. Like Andrew Tackett is such a huge personality. Like a 1 minute feature before like his match, things like that, I think would be great. We had definite budget constraints, right? Like the Fair Fight Foundation raised an X amount of money and they allocated more than 2/3 of it to fighter pay. And so we gave the show that we could give within that budget. But if there's a little bit of room there, B Team and those guys, they shoot so much great stuff. There's so much stuff that's just sitting on a drive somewhere that we would be able to go and access with an editor and recut. We just kind of totally ran out of time.
Sure. And then looking back on it, again, I'm sure when you do one of these shows, it's it's like anything else. It's like almost like it's a work that you've put together. Like if a jiu-jitsu guy, he has a match, painter has their painting, right? You have the show that you help produce, right? And when you look back on it, is there anything that you're particularly proud of, or you are excited to look back on and be like, that's something I'm excited or proud that I did?
I have a couple. Eddie, you should go first.
No, I'm from a jiu-jitsu, Rotolo and Tackett, like just to be a part of that, like to be, I was sitting, I got chills just watching it, the audience, like just to be a part of that, to be a part of Gabby and Craig and just to be a part of the team. There's so many, but yeah, I think giving our passion for work and our what we do in our world and give it to jiu-jitsu like that, for me as a jiu-jitsu guy, I feel like that was my gift back to what jiu-jitsu's given me, and I could never repay what jiu-jitsu's given me. So it's a little bit of what I can give back.
That's super cool. So being outside that world, it's very similar. We talked about, we wanted to do the Super Bowl of jiu-jitsu. Like we wanted it to be the biggest deal that anybody talked about. So the next day when I was getting calls and messages and there's like Reddit posts from the jiu-jitsu community saying how great it was so validating and really awesome to know that, we had these ideas like, oh, it'll be awesome when they, when he signs the card, like his graphic will be behind him. And when all those things kind of lined up and worked out and the community appreciated it, it was very rewarding. Probably the most rewarding show I've done.
Yeah, to have these ideas that we all sat down and just came up with, and to see it, and then for people to react to it. When people laughed at Hanato, like talking to Craig, like there was this really fun feeling, like, man, like we're giving the Miata away. And the way we gave it away, was day of. Craig comes in, I go, Craig, we need to shoot you giving this thing away. We can't just like willy-nilly. This is a car, Todd and I come from TV world where it's really important how you give things away. Like you can't cheat. You can't, it's really important how you do it right. Can we do it like some random way? So we caught with ticketing AJ. We filmed it in 1 minute, one take. It
was at 2 o'clock, right? It was 2 o'clock, and the show was at 5.
Todd, we'll be right back. I got it. And we just jumped in. Anthony and Harit filmed it, and and it was a random order. And to see her come down from the very top of the bleachers, like she didn't have VIP seats.
Yeah,
she was at the very top. Craig did some random numbers through an Excel sheet, through all the donors and through all the seat ticket holders, whether you were there or not. And for her to get it, like there on stage, like those are moments you're like, right, man, so much bigger than TV, so much bigger than a show on YouTube. Like history was made. It was really neat.
Talk about kind of working with like some of these charities like the Fair Fight Foundation. What was that like for you guys? And what did you try to kind of express or accomplish by working with these charities?
I think from day one, the charity aspect was huge. It's something that Seth kind of drilled to me. And, every contractor that we worked with, every vendor, they heard that over and over. They all kind of gave discounts to help pull this off, which is really why you had this amazing show for what we did, right? It was everybody kind of bought into the charity aspect. And I think we're all kind of behind it. You know what I mean? We want to see all the fighters get paid fairly. We want to see these big shows. I want to see a CJI for the next 10 years. I hope it gets even bigger and bigger and becomes multi-days. So I think we're all behind the movement for sure.
Yeah, the fact that the narrative was fair fight for fighters, and then the proceeds go to Tap Cancer Out, to Gabby's, foundation, to the children in Ukraine. Like, there's just, it kind of gave, I don't know, it made it, the pressure kind of released a bit, in the sense that it wasn't done for ego purposes. It wasn't done really for money purposes for Seth or Craig, right? It was really to do some good. And it kind of like, I don't know, I felt, and I know Todd did too. I kind of felt this good vibes, and this good amount of energy into the process.
What were the charities that you guys were supporting? Just for anybody that's listening, if they didn't know or didn't watch at the time.
The best bet is to go over to Fair Fight Foundation, right? And by donating there, it gets then spread through all the other organizations. I don't know if every athlete had one or just the super fight athletes. I don't have that list.
Yeah, so I do. So Anthony sent it to me earlier. It's Tap Cancer Out. It's the Academy of Christus in Bali. And forgive me if I'm messing up the names. Crianca Mas Feliz is for Gabby's foundation, for kids in hunger in Brazil. And then the Cody Boyarka, the Ukraine hospital as well. So those are the four main charities that they were focused on for this fight.
Very cool. And it'll be interesting to see, because for me, and I know, Eddie, you've been around for a long time, and Todd, I'm sure you've seen other stuff like this. There's been so many over the years, jiu-jitsu and MMA organizations that are coming out guns blazing, especially with jiu-jitsu, and they kind of come around and then they kind of fizzle back out. But I feel like this is, at least for me, this is the first time I could remember where I felt like on the actual action of the tournament and the matches, it delivered. The production delivered. It was like all things, because a lot of times it's like, okay, the production value, like going back to the Metamoris was great. Production value is great. A lot of times the matches, just the structure of the rule setting and everything else did not make for a really spectator friendly match. But with the alley, where there is no out of bounds, there's breaks every 5 minutes, so you kind of get that little bit of a breath in between, and then you come back out and you push it. There are no draws. There's going to be a winner and a loser. I think that it made for a really fun, spectator-friendly match, because I think the big challenge for jiu-jitsu has been there's so many casual people in jiu-jitsu who they don't have anything to do with competitions. Like, they love training, whatever, but a lot of times competitions, you have to have a complex rule system. A lot of times the tournaments are not really focused on being spectator friendly. And so it makes for a lot of times not really spectator friendly matches. And so I think that with the production value and everything else, it really, nailed it. And I'm excited to see if you guys can continue going, because I'm cheering for you. Because I would love to see that be able to something that becomes sustainable, where you guys can just keep doing it for year after year after year, both to support the fighters and to support the foundations that you guys are working with.
I think you kind of hit it dead on. The production value was amazing, and I appreciate those compliments. But really, I think the rule set in the alley made for a different way to see jiu-jitsu that made it super exciting, even for just the casual person who is an MMA fan. You get the open scoring, you get the rules, and there's other formats where maybe it's a 10 or 15-minute round, and you get a lot of stalling, right? In this sense, it's almost like you get that first round score, and psychologically, you can't stall now.
Yeah.
And so I think it just made for really, really exciting. We expected a lot of those matches to maybe go faster. I was surprised, when we were just kind of handicapping where things would end. We thought we'd get a lot of, at least some quick finishes, and everybody was kind of well matched, and we ended up with just a lot of really good technical jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm. A lot of these jiu-jitsu on different platforms, there isn't this entertainment aspect, and I felt like CGI really did a good job of encompassing some entertainment, right?
Mhm.
Some fun, some, aside from the fights and obviously $1 million, there was this also sense of like, I don't know, community, obviously from the foundation, but also like an entertainment factor of the Miata and with obviously Hanato and just all our guests. I feel like that kind of glued some of the big parts of the rule changes and the alley.
Yeah.
Everybody, all of our talented jujitsu guys. Alex Wendling's a big jujitsu person. It's like it was like the whole community coming together to put on this show, and I think that really kind of came through.
Yeah,
There was a divisive aspect of it too. I don't know if you guys could see it too. There was the other group there, and then there was us, right? So there was like a pick and choose vibe. But the people would go to the other show and then come to ours. And after our show was over, they go to theirs.
Yeah.
And so there was this like, I don't know, like you could have two different steaks on one plate and just, see which one's better. And that's never really happened in our world.
Well,
When have you seen that?
Well, I thought it was brilliant what Craig did, because obviously he made it's us against them. And then, what happened was it was us against them, but also you can be with both, right? So, on the first day, you could go to both events. I got busy coaching on the second day, so I wasn't able to make it over there for the second day, but people could go to both. I was talking to a lot of fans in both the CJI and in the other event, and everybody was going to both. Like, you were seeing like CJI shirts all over the place, and you're hearing people there. And so, there was definitely both, but from being at both sides of it, there was an energy in the CJI room that I did not feel in the other one. And I remember feeling that energy 2 years ago, and it was not there yet. So I definitely think you guys stole a little bit of the thunder, because it was missing. But I remember going into the CJI, and there was a, like, as you said, sense of fun, sense of entertainment. And it was like, I don't want to say it's a lack of seriousness, because it was being taken very serious, but there was this, like, to give you sort of like a thought, like when I went to the other event, it was almost like very quiet, very serious at times, right? Like, oh, this is very, very important. Whereas the other event was like, we're just a bunch of men and women. We're ready to jump into this pit. Let's throw down and win some money. And everybody, got paid. So I think that in that sense, there was a little bit of pressure off. You already got some money in your pocket. Now just go out there and let's fight and let's see what happens. And so I think it made for a really fun, entertaining event that wasn't so stressful. It was more of like, instead of, I hope I don't lose this thing or whatever, it was like, I want to try to just go out there and put on the best show possible. And I think it made for it was definitely electric out in the crowd, watching it the day of, and even watching from at home.
Well, from a perspective of a spectator, think of it like how difficult it is to watch 4 matches at once. Was it 3 or 4? I don't remember how many that.
It was
They had 3, I think,
three
3 matches.
Three.
How challenging is it? Like it's system overload.
That's a
Like
great point.
Number one. Number two, it's flat on the floor. So it's almost like a regular tournament here in Anaheim. So there's no, like, think of it like a drummer playing at a band. The drummer's always in the back and up top and above kind of everything, right? So it's really low. So think of it from just like a physical aspect. The crowd was so far away from them.
Yeah.
There's so few people there. Like, it would just from a physical aspect, it was, from what I hear, it was really challenging to get involved into one fight, because there's 3 of them happening. So how do you cover that? So that's I'm sure it's a big challenge for them on that production side.
Sure.
Yeah, I think when you look at it, money talks. Money does talk. So you put a big payday, the biggest payday there's ever been in jiu-jitsu, you're going to get some of the best athletes. You're going to get people going after it too. And I just think, like, you brought up a great point about, and that's something Chew and I kind of noticed, like, all your attention is on one match, like, and it's it's the alley. So it's very different. Like there's no stalling. So, like, I think the rule sets in conjunction with, like, the one match and everything being such close proximity, one of my favorite, visuals was like watching the athletes, like, between rounds sitting with their legs kind of, I think some of them were like legs were kind of dangling, and they're just watching, and they run into the alley and they kind of face off. It was kind of an interesting thing to see. It's like, I don't know. It was just fun. It was like kind of like a fight to the death type thing,
Well, that was
like a gladiator kind of moment.
Sure.
We shifted that. That didn't happen in the beginning. If you look at the first few fights, they would come out and then walk in. Ref would say, "You ready? You ready? Fight." Well, Todd and I came like, "Hey, well, what if we did? Let's get rid of that. Let's keep them on the side."
Yeah.
And I talked to J Flow. I was like, "Hey, can we just be okay from? I want you to talk to them from here. Make sure they're good. Make sure they're good." And every now and again, it'd work out to where the fight would start and they jump in, right?
Jump in, yeah.
And it worked out. Other times it didn't work out so well. You know, Rockhold would scoot up, or it didn't work. If you look at the early fights, watch the early fights and compare the jump in to the end. So that was another production change.
Yeah. It reminded me of that movie. What was it, like Lionheart back in the day with like where like some 80s movie and the dudes just jump in. And I remember I had that thought when I think it was the Owen Livesley match where like he's sitting at the top, they're both sitting there and there's, all right, let's go. And he just like posts his hand and like hops in there and then they just start going, like that's just it like you said, it's such a small thing that most people would probably not think about, but such a small change kind of adds a little bit to that presentation, for people to, when they're watching
all of us kids born like in the 80s and growing up watching kind of the Lionheart and Bloodsport,
all those fighting movies where the guys would just go in. Yeah.
Those are the greatest.
Yeah. And let's listen to the coach. Let's listen to the coach talk to him. Let's hear what they're saying. That's something that's missed in a lot of shows. We want to, boxing, you see a lot of it in boxing. They go to a corner or not. But I think, bringing that to jiu-jitsu, I thought was one little move forward to have people at home, like, be involved, like, not just, all right, fights on a break, let's go do something else. Like, let's be involved in what's happening, be engaged.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we talked about jiu-jitsu matches being silent. You guys were not playing music during the matches.
No.
So that kind of, I just remember
that was something that bugged me about the ADCC, because I remember coaching and trying to yell over top of music. I'm like, this is weird.
I remember I've been training jiu-jitsu since 2008. I remember going to a local tournament and there was like a brown belt or two brown belts going or two black belts going. If that ever happened, everybody's like dead silent and everybody's just focused and fixated on the match, like watching every single. I think that added to the intensity a little bit because you could hear pretty much everything and everyone's focused, like we said, on one specific event. And I think it added to the intensity in some capacity as well and the excitement of it, which I enjoyed. Obviously the rule set was a lot more digestible. Anybody can understand. Most people have followed boxing or MMA. They can kind of, they know 10-point scoring system and, okay, this person won this round. Or I think there's some, we were kind of talking, there's some like scoring kind of, we were still a little confused on specifically. Like, you have Levi that was kind of attacking from the bottom and doing pretty well, but then you have Cade that's attacking from the top and trying to pass and, who wins that? What do you look for? So I think some of that was a little bit, we're just like maybe a little more clarity on some of the specifically what they're looking for. But other than that, I think it was, you pretty much knew there was a consensus, like this person won or that person won.
Yeah, I thought the rules were great. I'm pretty excited to see who else adopts, who else is going to look to have like an alley type setup and who else is going to be, look to kind of go to rounds and maybe just that open scoring. I think is awesome.
It's like, how difficult is it to create that alley? Like, can you make it smaller? Like, do you like how you said it took quite a while to build this thing, longer than you expected. So like, can that be easily replicated? Can that be a regional thing that goes from here to there? Like, how is that, like, what's the financial of it all? Right. So those are challenges, but it does make a unique environment.
There's maybe 2 or 3 people in the world that build that right now the way it is. And so it's pretty difficult. And the way that one was built is kind of exceptionally difficult. It's like a piece by piece kind of lumber thing. If we do another CJI, it's a full kind of 24-hour build. It's like 8 guys with screw guns and hammers just going to town for hours. And so there's some difficulty in that, right? If you wanted to do some of those smaller shows, that's the difficulty, is there's money involved in all of this. The lights and the giant LEDs with the guys' graphics, they looked amazing, but there's a cost to building out that LED and all the people who run it. But I think there's some shows who could do that and step up their game a little bit, and it's really not that expensive. They should really reach out to Eddie, and he will get them squared away very quickly.
And then I'll call Todd and we'll figure it out. Yeah, no, I
is
think
100%.
other productions could make some changes, but like I was telling you guys off air, I know we don't want to put percentages to this, but the creativity and the marketing from B Team, it just that was really the fuel. And I mean, it
100%.
just was like it. Todd and I do shows. I mean, we do shows every week. I got a show and I got a show next week. Like it doesn't have the same fuel. It just doesn't. And
At all. The whole community was behind it and like so eagerly anticipate. Eddie's right. We have a little countdown that says like we're going to start the show in 5 minutes, and it's just a numbered countdown. And there's 30,000 people already there, just waiting to see the first thing we do.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of firepower from marketing doesn't usually happen.
Yeah.
We have a unique cast of characters. You know, you have Craig, and then you have a lot of these characters and a lot of these high level athletes like we talked about that are in there. And I was just thinking like, I remember watching Stephan Bonner and Forrest Griffin fight, the excitement of that and how it kind of really launched the UFC into what it is. I wonder if the Cade and the Tackett match was maybe had some similarities, because people seem to talk about that match a lot, and it was just so exciting and so dynamic. So I wonder if it's got maybe some of that momentum can carry on and get some more excitement in jiu-jitsu and watching jiu-jitsu for like your everyday person.
Well, and Nikki too. Like Nikki is such a character in our world, in our jiu-jitsu world, and he's like, the black belt slayer. Like I was a black belt when he was a white belt, I think. Like I'm like, this guy will destroy me. Like I don't even want to go near him. I was talking to Seth this morning. He's like, yeah, come to Austin and let you train with Nikki. I was like, there's no way I'm training with Nikki. Like I'm good. But I think
I value my joints.
I'm good. Like a body lock by Nikki Rod. I don't even want to, I'm good. But no, like in all seriousness, like I think even with the Nikki doing so well, and then Victor Hugo going out early, that upset, and Downey, and just there's so many different characters in what we're working with. And then obviously we have Gordon now, like the whole thing with Gordon, and could that Nikki Gordon match happen on our platform? I know. So there's a lot of unknowns at this point that frankly Todd and I aren't really involved in. I mean, that's kind of like a Seth and Craig thing. We just, all right, we're going to have these fighters. I could tell Seth, hey, I think this would be a good fight. But at the end of the day, it really boils down to those two and how they want to see the matches come up. But yeah, Nikki Rod is someone who's been a staple character in our world the last 4-6 years, and I think he's going to be a tough matchup for anybody. I mean, you saw him match up with. I mean, he's a bad boy.
He ran through pretty much everybody. He didn't make it. He made it look pretty easy, which is, he was on a mission. He seemed like he was very motivated to accomplish something. So,
and the way he fought was so different. Look at his matches from like last year to this year. It was a little slower this year. Like his pressure was a little timed out, a little more than it was, I feel like, than last year. And you could tell. I mean, his timing was just 100% on point.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if, like, maybe just thinking about it, if they would be able to do some sort of, like, maybe you have like a big CJI like end of the year thing where you give away the big prize or whatever, than if they would be able to do like smaller shows leading up to it, where you almost have like a UFC or a WWE type thing where you have this cast of characters that you've built up, and then it's entertaining, whatever, and then you can run them around and then build up to these big events later on, right? Like, because again, you have if it's spectator friendly, you might be able to put on, I guess you'd consider them maybe smaller shows to build up the buzz around up to the bigger show down the road. Obviously that's a really
good idea. I like
that's
that
a longer term thing. I'm sure they're thinking about that already.
You
too,
got
right?
belts and you got champions and all that.
Well, I mean, you think about the WWE, right? What was it? It was like a bunch of characters. And that's what propelled it. It was like the characters. Well, the wrestling is sort of I mean, you can look at the old The Rock and and Stone Cold back in the late 90s, early 2000s. They basically had like punches and kicks. It wasn't even the most technical wrestling, but the actual characters of them were so strong they just pulled people in. Or Hulk Hogan, Undertaker, all those guys. Mm-hmm. So like if they could promote these characters that they have, like Nikki Rod, like Cade and Andrew Tack and all these guys, it seems like you would be able to fuel these smaller events throughout it, and then have like a big old event at the end, and then use those to kind of build up steam throughout the whole year, but just be interesting to see.
It's a great idea. And you're right, man. Some of those people are huge stars, like Gabby. Gabby became such a huge star from this, and so well deserved. Such a great person, such a humble person. There's so many of these guys that just Andrew Tackett, like their socials have blown up after the show, and they're super entertaining. And so I think you're dead on. Like there's an appetite for that kind of content.
Guys who are coming up, guys who want it. The guys that are here now weren't here 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Rotolo, I don't think had a license yet. These guys are now grown men. These guys are, I grew up watching Rotolo as little kids. I remember like the kids, like now I'm like seeing them on. These guys are grown ass men now. So yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a good idea to have some of the people have a chance at the million, not just handpicked by the B team, but now no, it's like let's fight for it for real. Like let's fight for the million for the start. Which I think that'd be solid.
Very cool.
Yeah. I mean, it would just be interesting to see, because it's like I think what you guys have there is you have like an actual product that could be taken, and jiu-jitsu people enjoyed watching it, even the casual type people. And so I think that there's a product of very entertaining matches. And I think the format's so huge, because you think about I was thinking about this after watching the CJI matches, and I'm watching some of the matches at the other event on the second day, right? And I'm like, what if there was no out of bounds and these guys couldn't just push each other out, and they had to fight every takedown, every attempt or whatever, and you couldn't just run away? I'm like, it would make the matches infinitely more entertaining to watch. And then if you shorten down the rounds, where these athletic guys and women who have, the gas tank that they do, they're in great shape. You basically shorten down the round where you can have these sprints with a quick rest, a sprint with a quick rest. I think it's something I've talked about for a long time. Like jiu-jitsu matches are usually too long. They're way too long. It makes for passivity. And I think that like with you stopping the out of bounds and you giving people the chance to just go fast, and then you have a good production crew to deliver the actual like experience to people so they can actually watch it. Cause I know you were we were talking about this before you got on the call, Todd, but again, what if there was a terrible stream? It would have been a disaster, So it's like, It's like, maybe it's a small percentage of whatever, but it's huge in the fact that like, nonetheless, that is the presentation of it, right? So, it's like if someone had an iPhone and they delivered it in a Ziploc bag and said, here you go. It does all the same stuff that the iPhone does, but it's in a Ziploc bag. You're like, I don't want this thing, but it comes in this nice box or whatever. And so you guys were able to take this amazing product of exciting matches and everything else and deliver it into people's phones and their TVs and stuff like that. And it was really well done. So I think it all worked out together, and hopefully it'll change jiu-jitsu as time goes on.
Imagine Craig talking that much junk and then us like delivering a really bad stream or show. We would have been
we would have been fucked. Our socials would our socials would be deleted.
Had to lay low for a while.
Oh man.
It was good. Yeah. I think that's one of the most important things. Like when we were talking, like it seems like Craig and whoever else was involved, like put the emphasis on the right places to get this thing to actually to be able to display the product in the way it should have been, like it deserved to be displayed, just to share that excitement, to pass that through on YouTube. And like I said, is probably challenging to do. And, the challenges with jiu-jitsu where there's intricate positions and entanglements and stuff, and being able to capture that, because it's so hard to see sometimes. I think that's a huge thing, because sometimes a match will end and you're like, what just happened? But being able to capture all that and see the choke being sunk in, or see all that kind of those different angles, I think was really it's really helpful. And I think it helps that, like, because a lot of times when the matches go to the ground, it's like, oh man, like if you go to an MMA fight and watch an MMA fight, it goes to the ground, it's hard to see what's going on. But jiu-jitsu, majority of the match is on the ground, so it's important to capture that.
We were very aware and trying to, very concerned. And we had, a guy in the truck who was just our jiu-jitsu expert, Jack. Shout out to Jack. And Jack would be like, hey, this is the angle, this is the move, this is what's coming. Because a lot of my TV team, they're just TV guys. We drink soda and sit in front of big screens most of the day. And so having somebody like Jack there, having people like Eddie, I mean, we had so many black belts on the whole team, just scattered around, that it helped kind of preserve like the culture for sure, but then also, make sure the stream and the presentation was what you guys were looking for, not what
Very cool.
I'm looking for, right? As somebody who doesn't understand the sport.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was nice to have a bunch of killers around Todd because Todd couldn't say much. So it was just like, listen, bro,
The
this is
most quiet
happening.
I've ever been.
It was the most quiet he's ever been in a truck. And there was a bunch of killers in the truck making sure that jiu-jitsu was done well. Yeah, Jack, shout out to Jack. He's a second-degree black belt at our academy too. And to have people that do jiu-jitsu work on jiu-jitsu is so valuable because, you know, even on the VIP experience, well, we have, you know, Buchecha coming down. Someone who doesn't do jiu-jitsu would not treat that VIP experience guest the same, you know? So there was that level. Even you guys, like when you met Mark, like Mark is into it. You know, Mark is fanboying, you know, like all these guys were working, but they were so excited, so happy to be there. And you could tell, you know, the guests could tell, the VIP experience could tell. So I think that was a big thing for us.
Well, you guys pulled it off. It's a great job. It was enjoyable to watch, enjoyable to be there, and I think you guys killed it. So congrats.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. We very much appreciate that for sure.
Awesome. What do you guys have going on? What's like the, you know, whether it's jiu-jitsu or not jiu-jitsu, what's the game plan for you guys? And if people want to work with you all, see what you're up to, where can they do that?
I have some boxing, most valuable promotions this weekend. That's Friday. And then Karate Combat in Singapore, September 19th are my next two events.
Working with Netflix, got a few gigs with Netflix. And then we go into kind of some pre-production for Coachella festival stuff. And then, social is record mix intercom for Instagram. Ferrante with Ferrante Worldwide.
Ferrante Worldwide, yeah.
Ferrante Worldwide. That's great.
Yeah, it reminds me of Step Brothers.
So not a Step Brothers?
Prestige Worldwide.
No,
it's not. No, but you know what? It was a great idea until you have to start like spelling it out every time you give somebody your email. And now it sucks. I just want to be like ABC or something easy.
Yeah. Worldwide.
That's cool.
Yes, sir.
Well, is there a favorite memory? Like let's end with that. Is there something that stood out to you guys? Maybe a favorite experience, favorite memory that you shared, someone you met or an interaction you had?
Oh man, there's so many. I think for me, this has been a very eye-opening experience. I haven't spent this much time with so many people in the jiu-jitsu community, and I was super impressed. Like the people that Eddie brought along that started off as runners and like quickly proved themselves to be so great, and I was just impressed with everybody. You know, our weigh-in, I've done 100 weigh-ins in my career. Somebody's always late. Somebody always misses. This was like everybody was early. Everybody made weight. And I was just so impressed with everybody. I think I'm super, I'm a little, fanboying on the community.
It's cool.
Favorite memory for me, two memories I'll start with. I had a conversation with Seth, and he was telling me about his concerns. Right. Seth, in full disclosure, he had never really done an event before, especially at this size. And I remember telling him kind of my responses to some of his anxiety that, he was bringing up, and they were all reasonable. And I remember when the show finished and I just kind of looked at him, we kind of had this moment where like, we got through it. That was a really cool memory with Seth. And then with Todd, I mean, like Todd and I have been going through this for months. And there was a moment, I think it's on Instagram, where I didn't know he was coming at me, and he goes, Eddie, and I look and I go, the face I had was just so happy of like, we're here, like, all right, let's go to the after party, like they were ready to go. It was just like pure joy of like, we fucking did it, man. And I think we texted each other for like 48 hours, bro.
Yeah. ...
bro. ... It was just like, excited.
Every kind of plan that we spoke out and we talked about somehow worked out, and that's not usually the case. And even the small things that we were like, oh, it's going to be so cool when they go and they cross the guy's name off the board. Like, it's like people enjoyed it. And so we started to just geek out on people enjoying it so much. Yeah, there was a good week that we were like, I can't believe this. People are so into it.
It's very cool.
Hell yeah, guys. That's awesome. So congratulations to you guys, man. And hopefully we'll see CJI too, and you guys will be there producing it and helping knock it out of the park again.
Hope so. Thank you, fellas.
Yeah, thanks,
thank
guys.
you guys very much. Appreciate your time.
All right, guys. So hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. It's fun to talk to those guys. And again, the event itself was amazing. And if you guys have not watched the stream, you should go watch it. You can go back and watch. The video's still there. Go back and watch some of those matches. They were amazing. Some of the most entertaining matches that I've seen in jiu-jitsu. And I know that a few months ago when this was first announced, I was kind of resistant to the whole thing, you know, because I didn't know. Like, a lot of times people come on and they make big claims, they talk about what they're going to do, and I'm very resistant, especially when it comes to the internet, right? And maybe too much so. You know, like, you know, because there's so many guys out there that like that are basically grifters, where they basically come on and they'll say, hey, I've got this is the one thing that you guys need to know that's going to fix everything, you know. Or how many times have you seen where someone's had a charity and they end up pocketing the money? You know what I mean? So there's always been this stuff. So when that stuff comes out, I'm probably a little bit more cynical than I need to be. But Craig knocked it out of the park. And the more that things got closer, I started listening to more podcasts like Lex Friedman and stuff that he was on. I felt like the troll turned down, and then like who he is, he's an intelligent guy. And he had a mission that he wanted to put together. It was, you know, I was like, okay, I'm on board. I get you. And then to see the event pull off like it did was great. So I think he did an amazing job, and I hope the damn thing keeps going.
Yes.
That's always like, again, and I'm not trying to be cynical here. I'm being like, I'm hopeful, you know, crossing my fingers for him, because, you know, there's been so many events where, you know, as soon as an investor backs out, that's it, right? Like, no muss, no more. So I'm hoping that the investor stays in there, and I hope that the investor is able to give them enough life and juice so that they can build this event into something that can be self-sustaining later on. Because that's my hope. My hope is that like they're going like sort of the tech company route, where tech companies will just eat cost for years in order to get people's attention and eyeballs and whatever, and then they can, you know, do advertisements just like everything else, right? You know, you have you know, TV shows and things like that. When they have a lot of ratings, they can sell advertisements. Think of the Super Bowl, right? Like, they make so much money on selling, you know, 30-second, 60-second spots, because they know, you know, millions of people are going to be watching. So I'm hoping that works out, because I think that it's probably the most entertaining format that I've seen of jiu-jitsu as of right now.
I think having Eddie and Todd on the podcast, I think really showed like he had the right pieces to the puzzle in place. Like, a lot of these people had big roles. Like, they didn't skimp on the important stuff, the production and things like that, and getting the best athletes. And I think it worked out really well. And he did great. And I'm not saying all the credit should go to Craig, but like everyone involved, and seems like it was just a great experience for all those around. And it went off really well. It was a joy to be there and watch the athletes. And we were there for the first day, and then also to watch it on YouTube. I think they just really did a great job. So
well, I think it's an example of like having a good team, right? Because like, okay, like they don't have the eyeballs if they don't have Craig, because Craig was the front man.
Sure.
You know, he's the front man that's out in front of everybody, you know, basically carrying the flag of the mission that he has. And then he has the whole team behind him.
Yeah.
Of a lot of people. Again, if you guys didn't see this podcast, and you may not have ever heard of these guys, right?
Sure.
And so there's all these people that are in the background making this thing happen, but you have that front man, and then behind them you have all these other people doing the things that need to be done, because obviously it was by Craig trying to do by himself, it obviously wouldn't work.
Sure.
So he had to have a team in place, and I think you know, they didn't skimp on the production. They were like, okay, people are going to be watching this at home for free. We really want to knock this out of the park, so we can skimp on other stuff, you know, like maybe some of the presentation aspects of the event, you know, in the actual venue. It was still really good, of course.
It was great.
Very good. But, you know, you can skimp on some of that stuff in turn to move the money to the production value, because again, when it comes down to it, if you want people to watch this stuff, it has to be produced well. And again, you know, like he was talking about, you know, simply just moving from say 720 to 1080, you know, you have a crispier, nicer video that people want to watch, and then having different angles. You know, one of the things you don't have sometimes at other events is like really good angles of the match, different angles that make it more captivating. You just have kind of a blanket camera sitting over here on a tripod over on the side, and there it is, you know. So they went, you know, super well, or super high into the production part of it. And I think that paid off, because that stream was out of control. I mean, that stream was great. And, you know, I think those guys, again, as they were talking about, you know, they were like, well, Craig brought the people, and that's true. But again, if you didn't have a good delivery of the product, people wouldn't have stuck around for as long as they did, you know, because I think we were talking about it. I think like the number was like 40+ minutes of watch time, which that's nuts. I mean, you think, okay, if you're having 140, 160, whatever, thousands of people on a stream, and they're watching for 40 minutes long, that's a long time, man. And so that's something where I think that, you know, bringing that up is just, it's a smart thing they did. And so I hope that they're able to use that to grow it for the next time,
That's
and
right.
you know, put more money in fighters' pockets, but also to produce for their foundation. And you know, again, going back to it, produce a self-sustaining business that can continue to do those noble and worthwhile things for years to come.
Yes,
So we'll see.
I agree.
So guys, hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. Big thanks to our sponsors for helping make it happen. Charlotte's Web CBD. If you guys have never checked them out, Charlotte's Web CBD, you can save 30% using the promo code Chewjitsu30 for 30% off. And again, once you get something, if you find something you like, send us a receipt, just take a little screenshot of it. You can send it to our Instagram at the Jiu-Jitsu Podcast, or you can go to email with jiu-jitsupodcast@gmail.com. Send us a receipt of it. We'll send you a free bonus video series to you at no additional cost. Obviously, we'll just do it there as a special thank you. Also, epicrollbjj.com. If you're wanting to get some new no-gi gear, a gi, t-shirts, whatever, anything jiu-jitsu related that you can wear, Matt probably has it on his website. epicrollbjj.com is the website. The promo code is Chewjitsu20 for 20% off the order. If you guys want to support the podcast directly, you can go to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. For all of you Patreon subscribers, we really appreciate you. Appreciate you guys supporting the podcast and helping keep it going. And you can join up by going to patreon.com/the Jiu-Jitsu podcast. And guys, last but not least, if you want to get a couple free ebooks and get my daily email letter, you can do so by going to my website, jujitsu.net/join, JOIN. When you join up, I will send you a couple free ebooks that get into drilling and some game planning stuff for your jiu-jitsu. Could be very useful. And then you will receive my daily email letter that goes into everything from books I'm reading, lifting, diet, training ideas. A lot of times now I'm talking about stuff because I'm getting older and ideas on getting older on the mat. So again, a lot of different stuff you can check out at jujitsu.net/join and join up today for free and unsubscribe at any time. And guys, with that said, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you next time.